One evening in the summer of 1985, I fell over. I was a clumsy kid, so this was nothing new. What was new was that I couldn't get back up. Every time I tried to stand, I felt excruciating pain in my leg. I spent the next several weeks in hospital and was eventually diagnosed with osteomyelitis. It was a scary experience, and it formed one of my earliest coherent set of memories, and unexpectedly, a connection with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe that would last a lifetime. Sometimes it feels like the time of great theme music has passed us by. Outside of legacy franchises, we rarely see truly iconic melodies used in film and television anymore. From the 50s all the way to the 90s, the TV show theme song was a big deal. It let you know the show was starting, giving you time to get settled, get hyped up for the next 30 to 60 minutes. This was very important back when you couldn't pause TV or just watch on demand. Since TV was largely episodic during much of this time, the opening credits sequence was also an introduction to the show itself. Particularly in the case of shows aimed at younger audiences, it may have even featured an opening narration which clearly laid out the conceit of the series. From the mid-90s, as storytelling started to expand into overarching storylines and technology allowed for the creation of more advanced sequences, opening credits and theme music were able to evolve in new directions. The music and credits became a more organic part of the show, as if they were integral to the storytelling process. They were how you got your brain into the right mood, and they became pieces worthy of artistic interpretation in their own right. What was noticeable to me was how, as time went on and the opening credits became more complex, more thought-provoking, the music mattered less within the show itself. Basically, the more mature a show was meant to be, the less likely you were to hear the theme music in an actual episode. This wasn't an inherently good or bad shift, but for me growing up, the theme song was almost as important as every other part of the show combined. And since the new Masters of the Universe movie is coming out, well, right now while I'm shooting, I want to talk about why. I want to talk about the power of theme music and why some of my initial excitement is turning into caution. Welcome to the workshop. My name is Paul, aka Wordmaker. I love music. I especially love music that has been written for music and television. I find music to be such an important part of storytelling that I use background music in my tabletop campaigns. I have playlists I use when I'm writing, and when I was a kid playing with action figures, I queued up songs that would match the action I was playing out. If someone would invent a device that played appropriate music as you were reading a book, I would buy that in a heartbeat.
Shut up and take my money!
And while I don't have a lick of musical talent, I do know a thing or two about how music actually works as a storytelling tool. Even when I was a very little word maker watching cartoons after school, I paid attention to how music was used. And this formed one of the two early foundations of my understanding of storytelling. The first was that the good guys can't simply beat the bad guys the first time they fight. They have to lose first, regroup, and then come up with a plan that allows them to win. The second was that the music needs to reflect what's going on at any given time. And crucially, the good guys need their own music to play when they win. This is what I, at the time, called a hero song. Like I said, these were early concepts, but not bad for a 7-year-old. This meant that when I watched a show, I knew the heroes would struggle, but that the reward for that struggle would be getting to win in the end. Remember that word, reward. It's important.
By the power of Grayskull!
He-Man was one of my first heroes. He's up there with Superman, Luke Skywalker, Optimus Prime. I still remember the very first Masters of the Universe action figure I got. I was in the hospital having contracted osteomyelitis in my hip, which was extremely painful and honestly a pretty scary experience for a kid who hadn't yet turned 5. It was starting to look like I might be in there for my birthday, so my parents, who would often actually stay overnight with me, gave me my birthday presents while I was in there. And one of those was the original He-Man action figure. This was a few years before I'd started figuring out how stories worked, but the overall experience cemented He-Man as one of the most important characters in my life. As you can imagine, I've got a lot of emotion riding on the new movie. While it was never a very common plot point, some of my strongest memories of the cartoon are the episodes where Adam was prevented from becoming He-Man. Whether it was because he couldn't get his sword, or he couldn't get to a place where he could transform in secret, the challenge in eventually becoming He-Man made the eventual transformation all the more rewarding. When done well, the very absence of the thing you want, the effort required to get there, makes it even more exciting when it finally happens. Granted, you have to be careful how you handle this and don't drag things out too much.
When are they gonna get to the fireworks factory?
Part of this comes from the music, which would often kick in before Adam even spoke a word. The moment you hear the first notes play, He-Man has pretty much already won. This is an example of one of my favorite tropes, the theme music power-up. We can trace the roots of the theme music power-up all the way back to the original Popeye cartoons. Starting in 1933, Popeye, who was already incredibly strong, would run into trouble with his arch nemesis Bluto and then eat his spinach, which would boost his strength to outright superhuman levels, allowing him to triumph over his foe. This was famously accompanied by his theme music. Some cartoons would use other traditional American marching music like Yankee Doodle or Stars and Stripes Forever, but Popeye's own theme was used most often and is arguably the most famous example of the theme music power-up. The use of themes and leitmotifs to signal a specific character's dominance over a scene goes back hundreds of years in musical composition, and when the Fleischer Popeye cartoons carried this practice over into animation, it started a tradition which has continued in visual storytelling to this day. It was especially useful, along with transformation sequences, which Masters of the Universe also employed, as a way for shows to stay under budget. Instead of having to compose new music for each episode, they could just reuse the same track to signify victory. Even as production quality has improved, budgets have increased, and technology has advanced, over the years, we've always seen creators bring back recurring themes, particularly when they want to evoke a certain feeling. It's been done in The Real Ghostbusters when the team was about to pull off a plan to save the day.
Jeremy!
Just one chance. We have to hope he weakened it enough for the proton beams to affect it. Fire!
The 90s X-Men cartoon frequently used a ramped-up version of their theme music in the season finales.
This'll teach you to keep your paws off the lady!
And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the triumphant way the Next Generation theme is used in Season 3 of Star Trek Picard.
Make it so. Aye, sir.
So apart from artistic tradition and budgetary considerations, why do creators continue to bring back the same musical themes over and over?
You might not have even noticed, but your brain did.
The YouTube channel Overly Sarcastic Productions also has a podcast, and on it they have often discussed how different forms of art are each the best at a given function. Prose is the best way to get across what a character is thinking, for example. Their view on music is that it is the best way to make a person feel something. Music evokes our emotions in ways few other art forms can, and musical repetition can be extremely powerful when used correctly. The American Psychological Association specifically notes that music activates different parts of our brain. Music that we enjoy, that we keep coming back to, triggers the brain's reward pathways. And much as we do for story structure, or at least as much as I do when it comes to story structure, our brains try to predict what will happen next. When the brain gets it right, this fires off a dopamine surge. And this is triggered even when we're already familiar with that piece of music. Remember what I said earlier about rewards and how the opening theme of a show gets you excited for it? Well, the repeated exposure to that piece of music creates a subconscious trigger. It's like a cheat code for our minds. The moment we hear our hero's theme music, before the conscious, rational part of our brain has processed the events on screen, the subconscious part has already started flooding us with dopamine, firing our brain's pleasure and reward centers and rousing those emotions of excitement and satisfaction. Which is why when I saw that the trailers and other marketing for the new Masters of the Universe movie were using a rendition of the original theme music from the cartoon, I was incredibly excited. Before seeing any of that, I had assumed that they would be using a completely unique score. This is because no other version of He-Man or Masters of the Universe has used that theme music. The original music was composed by Shuki Levy and Haim Saban, and the rights to it exist completely separately from the rights to the Filmation cartoon or the Mattel toy line. They are currently owned by Universal Music Group. It's been famously difficult to put together a licensing agreement that would allow the original theme to be used. And I was honestly surprised and delighted at the idea that Amazon and MGM had worked out a deal. But now I'm wondering, are we going to hear the original Masters of the Universe theme music rearranged with a full orchestra behind it? The marketing for the movie has been saturated with it. It's been featured in almost all of the trailers and used along with the new Eternia theme in the drone show over Los Angeles on May 19th. But there is no confirmation, one way or the other, whether the license agreement that's been reached includes the rights to use the music in the film's actual score, or if it's only been licensed for marketing purposes. At least, not that I've been able to find. In fact, pretty much the only verifiable information I've been able to find that discusses this arrangement has been from HE-MANIA.com, who posted that the music we've been hearing was composed by Eddie Thoneick, not Daniel Pemberton, the actual composer for the new movie. This is probably a minor consideration for most people, but the right or wrong music could make all the difference, at least for me. And as much as I do like Pemberton's Eternia theme, it doesn't land the same having heard Thoneick's arrangement. I'm hopeful, given the huge amount of publicity and marketing going into this, that we'll at least get to hear it during the final victory over Skeletor. It would definitely be quite a letdown for the music to feature so heavily in the marketing, only to be left out of the movie completely. I guess we'll have to see. Sadly for me, I'm built weird. Great music can lift a terrible movie, but the wrong music, or music used at the wrong time, at least on my first watch, can bring a great story crashing down. When I hear that music, I'm a kid again. Not just the kid sitting comfortably at his living room TV after finishing his homework, but the kid lying in a hospital bed with a cage over his leg, keeping the blanket from touching it because even the slightest weight hurts too much. A packaged action figure tucked next to him while his mum lies asleep beside the bed. That music is about overcoming obstacles and facing challenges. It's triumph and comfort and heroes defeating villains. It reminds me that the memories which shape us, the places we go to in order to grow and find strength, can be scary as often as they're comforting. And it's important to face scary times even when things seem to be at their worst. Because that's what heroes do. Thanks for watching. This is the first script I've written since my Hand issues have gotten so bad that I actually cannot type properly anymore. I'm developing some kind of disability in my hand, which means I now primarily rely on dictation software to do any form of writing or work, which is very difficult to adapt to. It's part of why there's been such a delay getting this video out. Of course, getting this looked at is taking literally years at this point. So, if anyone wants to help support me so I can get faster medical care, Patreon links down below. I'm still really excited for Masters of the Universe, even if the trailers do turn out to have been setting us up for something we won't actually get. So, yeah, I mean, the initial reviews have been good from previews. Let's hope Jared Leto isn't noticeable. Let's hope it's fun. Let's hope the good guys win in the end. We could use none of that. Remember, back up your arguments, cite your sources, take care, and I'll see you next time. Wordmaker out.